Somehow Xbox really turned things around this year. Like, a lot of us wanted Xbox to become that big first-party producer they once were, making a lot of great games for their platform. But right when it seemed like they were about to do that, they had one of the driest years they have ever had. This year, though, they managed to produce more games than their main competitor, have a bestseller, win a nice award, make partnerships, and almost just constantly be in the conversation, which is their biggest problem last year. Last year, we just wanted Xbox to be around, but they just weren't. They didn't have any, hardly any showcases, releases. It was just As Dusk Falls, Pentiment, and the Summer Showcase. That was it. It started off really strong, coming off of getting Metacritic's 2021 Publisher of the Year award, and they, in January, announced acquiring Activision Blizzard King, which was monumental at the time, but 2022 as a year, it just sucked. Their whole 12-month model window that they put in their showcase in 2022, yeah, that didn't really play out as they thought it would. And with Redfall, Starfield, and Forza falling out of that window, we even got to see a leaked email from Phil Spencer saying, this is a disaster. It's almost going to be 16 months since our last big release being Halo Infinite, which is true. That was December of 2021, and he knew that Redfall wasn't really going to come out until May. Speaking of Halo, their flagship franchise, the talk around Halo last year became so toxic because their face-on-the-box game just was not releasing enough content. Plus, towards the end of the year, that Activision Blizzard deal got hit with just the CMA, Sony, FTC. It got insane. Even though As Dusk Falls and Pentiment reviewed very well, that was really the only big wins at least that Xbox had last year, and they weren't even that present with marketing or updates or really anything. So that's where we were. And in that email I mentioned Phil Spencer saying, he's like, even if it means we have to push some games back, let's just do it, because we need to have constant beat after beat after beat with our audience. Boy, did that happen this year. Let's focus on the three things that really carried this year for Xbox, being their first-party game releases, presence, and Game Pass. And let's start with those games, because that is the thing that at the end of the day, a lot of people are just well, that's all that matters. Cool. Let's hit it. Xbox released not one, not two, not three, not four, but 5 brand new first-party titles this year.
What?
And really, Redfall was the biggest miss this year from Xbox. That was their first labeled bad game that they've had, which I did a video about Xbox's quality, so yeah, click that card after this video. But yeah, that's their first bad game that they have made in a very long time. Minecraft Legends was fine, it was okay, but the rest of those titles, all reviewed with a mighty on OpenCritic. Starfield, Hi-Fi Rush, and Forza. They all reviewed with a mighty rating. And Hi-Fi Rush, man, that really kicked the year off so strong as just this shadow drop of a title from one of their new Bethesda studios, Tango Gameworks, and it's probably in the running for a lot of people's game of the year, potentially. Maybe it's not going to be the game of the year for a lot of the official people, but for me, it's in the running. And we have to mention Starfield, about how this game somehow sure didn't review higher than other games, but the success that it's had. It's the first time Xbox has had a big hit title like this in a really long time. Not only did Starfield be the biggest Bethesda launch ever, and not only did it become the most sold game of September this year, which was over Mortal Kombat 1, by the way, it somehow became the 7th most sold game this year. How? Now we're talking about dollar sales, and yes, I'm aware that it had a $100 early access thing, but this was a game that launched on Xbox Game Pass, a service that has 30 million subscribers, and it somehow made more money than Street Fighter 6, Final Fantasy 16, and Resident Evil 4 when they had a couple months of a head start. But not only was there those 5 new first-party releases, which, by the way, you should comment down below and let me know which of those was your favorite, but also there was 4 first-party titles that are coming to Xbox, the console, for the first time. There was Age of Empires 2 and 4, Ghostwire Tokyo, and Quake 2 Enhanced remastered, whichever we want to call it. And then there's the expansions, the DLCs, the games as a service situations where like Elder Scrolls Necrom happened. I think Fallout 76 has Atlantic City coming up in December. There was Sea of Thieves. I think they had like 2 or 3 seasons, including one being a collab with Monkey Island. And Halo Infinite had 3 seasons this year versus last year where they just basically had 1 or 2. Last year, that was the biggest complaint about Halo Infinite, and this year, Halo Infinite has a full-on comeback effect, but it's great to see that. Like, not only did they release the 5 new games, but they also brought games that weren't on the console before and keep expanding the games that they've released, including their baby. And while the Game Award nominees aren't up yet, as I record this and upload this video, the nominees for Game of the Year for the Golden Joystick Awards are out, and there's Forza, Starfield, and Hi-Fi Rush in those nominees, which Xbox shouted out, which they also shout out Diablo 4 for reasons we'll get into. With the presents this year, like, I didn't care last year so much about the lack of releases. I thought that was fine. In fact, push them back so you could spread them out like they did this year, which is great. You had like your January, April, May, September, October games. Those are your 5 things with stuff in between with your other first party stuff. It was a spread out year, but didn't happen at all last year alongside game releases is just shows, updates, marketing. They did none of that last year. They have no Nintendo Direct that's like the March, June, September times. But what did they do this year? Well, they kicked it off with a developer direct. They did like full-blown, well-produced deep dives into 5 titles coming out this year. And that was beautiful, like super well produced, getting to know the teams, very little fluff. It's just showing the games that are gonna come out in the year, and I really hope that they kick off next year with that, especially since, yes, in June, we got our usual Xbox game showcase that we usually get all like E3 timing basically, and that showcase, they laid out 4 titles. 4 first-party titles are going to be out next year with Hellblade 2, Avowed, Microsoft Flight Sim 2024, and Towerborn. That could probably be the developer direct next year, but they also gave us like glimpses of future titles like Fable, South of Midnight, and Clockwork Revolution, which looked dope, by the way. And they had plenty of partners like Ubisoft, Capcom, CD Projekt Red, Sega. They all showed up at the Xbox showcase, and that was really cool to see. And it was apparently their highest rated and most viewed showcase ever. And there is a negative note I'm going to just mention briefly in a moment, but they didn't stop here. There was the ID Xbox showcase in July, which was fine. It was modest. But the other cool thing in July was they showed up at the Final Fantasy XIV celebration where they announced, after many years, Final Fantasy XIV is finally coming to Xbox, but not just that. We want to have a closer relationship with Square Enix. We are done sitting on the sideline and just letting them just always work with PlayStation. That is great. That is so good to hear the new Square CEO doing that. Next month in August was Gamescom, which Xbox had their biggest booth ever, apparently, and they showed off a lot of games very well and had dev interviews. It kind of felt like it kind of seemed like their own event, really, at Gamescom, which is wild. But they also won the Green Studio of the Year award, so they're helping the planet at the same time. And I was really surprised to see in September they made one of my predictions come true at the Tokyo Game Show, which they had, which, great to see them trying to get Japan. That was actually a decent show, by the way. I don't think I've done a video about that, but I did think that was a decent show. But Like a Dragon Gaiden, the man who erased his name, apparently that is a day 1 launch on Game Pass, and that just kind of blew my freaking mind. But then we come to October, where yes, they finally close the Activision Blizzard King deal that has plagued, like that was a way that they stayed in the conversation throughout all of 2023. That deal is finally closed, and now like we can kind of just focus on how they're going to integrate that into the developer direct and showcases and stuff going forward, Game Pass. But they also didn't just do that. They had an Xbox partner preview, which is something that like other, like PlayStation has their stated plays, Nintendo has their partner directs or whatever, but Xbox now had this. And there was no fluff in it or anything. I haven't talked about this either, but just, it was really cool. It was a really cool way to like remind people, yes, we have first party stuff, but here's also some people that we got to partner with us to give you a special look. And that means something. That's part of the talk too. There were some negative beats though, the whole court hearing situation. They also announced like Xbox network recordings, your DVR, they're going to apparently clear those out, which sucks. And they just recently announced like third-party accessories might just not work anymore. And those things are bad, yes. I do struggle, though, to think about how much that outweighs all the positives. Because the thing at the end of the day that has kept me entertained throughout the entire year is Xbox Game Pass. That is the other thing that has really just kind of exploded this year. Like, if I look off camera, it's because I have a list. And this list doesn't even have everything on it. Persona 3 and 4 came out, Monster Hunter Rise, Atomic Heart, Wolong Fallen Dynasty, the next game from Team Ninja, Valheim, very well-received multiplayer game previously. Cool indies like Cassette Beast, Ravenlock, Planet of Lana, GTA 5 came back, Exo Primal from freaking Capcom, Capcom's newest multiplayer title. Games came back like Celeste and Limbo. Just new games though still happen like Everspace 2, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Gotham Knights. That kind of like just shadow showed up on there. I feel like that wasn't really marketed at all, and I'm shocked that it wasn't. The Annapurna Showcase, which Annapurna, fantastic indie game publisher, their showcase in June, half of the 12 games they showed there are coming to Game Pass day one, and just the couple past months have been insane with freaking launches. Like leaving out Starfield and Forza, there was Sea of Stars, Lies of P, Party Animals, Payday 3, Cocoon, Jusant. Don't sleep on Cocoon, Jusant. Like Cocoon was fantastic and Jusant looks pretty cool. And I am very tempted by the fact that through EA Play, the Dead Space remake is on there now, which came out this year. Game Pass this year, it was just too much. I forgot to mention that when Starfield came out, apparently it set like a new record for the most new subs to Game Pass in a single day. I am very curious how the number is going to go up next year with like the whole Activision Blizzard stuff, which, just kind of personal takes now. I really don't believe any of the new big first-party titles from Bethesda or Xbox this year will be nominated for Game of the Year. Yes, including Starfield. I don't think that'll happen, but even if it doesn't, who cares? It was an awesome year, and I bet you they're going to be in a bunch of other various categories that for some reason people don't care about when you should. As somebody that just wants to consume their content and feel included in what they are doing and stay updated and treated well, this was the year that I was really hoping we would essentially get, compared to last year where it just felt like we were totally left in the dark and not getting anything to eat. And they already said that like the Activision Blizzard stuff won't be coming to Game Pass probably until next year, but if they somehow can manage to bring them on before the year's over, oh, that'll be so freaking cool. Things like Halo Infinite making a comeback, Starfield's massive success, these spread out releases, Game Pass kind of being overwhelming at times, and having multiple shows or moments that Xbox was present this year, it all makes me feel very happy to be an Xbox consumer / fan. And it gives me hope for the future. If they could just nail this down, having 3 shows or moments a year, plus a spread out release model. But of course the games have to keep being good. Like, will Hellblade 2 and Avowed and so on be well received? We'll have to wait and see. The Game Awards are still coming up, and I can almost guarantee they're going to be there because of how many people complained about that last year, and this year they've heard a lot of those complaints. And somehow I managed to predict a lot of these things in my timeline video, and a lot of things I got wrong too. Like, it's both ways, but I'm shocked that some of them I actually got pretty spot on. Maybe some of those things from November and December will come true. I mean, watch the video and find out like what I said there, and subscribe to find out what happens in the rest of the year and for more of this kind of fun gaming reflection, speculation. And don't forget to let me know, what are your favorite moments for Xbox or other game publishers in 2023?